Michael, hey, congratulations on your new film, Ghost Game.
Thank you so much, Gig, and thank you for talking with me today. I appreciate it.
No, we really appreciate you talking about this film, and you know what? This is a film. It's a very fun film that we love to watch, like in the middle of the night on a Friday or a Saturday night. So,
I
thank you.
love to hear that. That's just where you should be watching it. Yep, that's just where you don't watch it on a Tuesday night because you got to go to work and you're still having trouble sleeping, right?
Yeah, so true, so true. So, Michael, tell us what initially drew you that you wanted to be part of Ghost Game.
Yeah, I think it was the story and the director, young director Jill Gevargizian, and I know I'm saying her name wrong, and everybody says it differently, but I'll say Jill Six. Jill, I watched The Stylist after hearing about this film, which was her first feature, which I was kind of blown away by because I'm like, wow, that's your first feature. That's really impressive. And so I read this script and I really enjoyed the story. I kind of got involved in, how you go down the rabbit hole of like, okay, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? I was able to read it in one sitting, which is a good sign. And I just connected to the story and I connected to the role of Pete, which is just, he's just like your dad who's trying to make good and bought an old house because that's what he could afford. And he has the dreams of making this new book it's gonna be the one, and we're gonna live happily ever after. And he's remarried, and he's got this wife and this stepdaughter, and it's like let's make a go of it. And of course, all hell breaks loose. It doesn't work out, but so anyway, the story and Jill, and once I talked to her for a little while, and she was interested in me joining her, I was very grateful for that. So yeah, the rest is history.
I was going to say, Michael, that the character you play is a very complex character for Pete. He's not the, how can you say, have good intentions, but not quite likable. I mean, I feel like you were channeling Jack Nicholson from The Shining for parts of this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you can see some, I guess even when you read the script, you're like drawing these comparisons, and then you're like, all right, let me go away from that, right? Because then I'm gonna wind up just emulating that, and I can't do that. That's unfair to the story, to the person, to the director, to me as an actor trying to be creative in the process. And I appreciate that. I'll take that as like a compliment that you're seeing those similarities. And I do think that when you get a role that's a guy who's devolving into sort of madness, that you can't go like, okay, watch me devolve into madness, because then the audience will be like, well, this is so phony. So you're just trying to be in those moments and really feel what that character's feeling at the time, which was really exciting to do because they are big emotions. Let's be honest. There's a lot happening to this family. So super, super fun to play. Super fun to play.
So as an actor, actor on actor, when you are portraying this type of character and you are, how can you say, mistreating other on this, how do you pull it off? Because in its own way, I feel so bad for the kid, and
Yeah.
especially the child did a terrific job playing on the spectrum, by the way.
Yeah, amazing, right? And that's not easy to do, right? Because you want to be respectful of that and those who have challenges or those who are on the spectrum. You got to be very careful with how that's portrayed and how that's directed. And I think everybody handled that super well. And that's like, to me, she's the character that you're seeing the story through. So you're watching through the lens of this character. So to answer your question, like Vienna Moss, like my main concern at the outset, reading the script, knowing I'm going to meet this young person who's so talented, so kind, so giving, was like, I got to make sure she trusts me as a person first, right? And you go back to acting school. Like if you went and you study to be an actor, it's like you have to have trust amongst your scene partners so that you can do the things that are pushing the boundaries. I'd never worked that. I've worked with kids before. I had never worked on something so intense with a child. So I was worried. Her mom was on set and I talked to her a little bit, and like I just want to make sure like we're all good. And of course you create a relationship, and thankfully we shot pretty much at least the house stuff with me in sequence, so we were able to get to that point. But yeah, earning her trust, and I'm grateful for her trust and her talent was huge. Otherwise it doesn't work. Otherwise you are scaring somebody, and that's not cool. Like it's play. We're playing here. We're not real life here. So and the last thing I just chime in about Emily Bennett, who played the mom, like she's part of that equation too, who was mothering of Vienna. both in character and out of character, and just an extraordinary talent. And I'm excited for people to see her and everybody's performances.
Absolutely. Now, you are no stranger to being on production at creepy places, and this haunted house is a character on its own. Could you tell us about this place?
Yeah, and well said, because I rolled up to this place. We were shooting overnights, but we started with like a late afternoon scene, I think when the movers are coming in, and then we transitioned to overnight. So I show up at like 9 in the morning to this house, and I just pull up along the street and I look up, it's on this perched on this hill, and I was like, whoa, like this house has an energy to it for sure. So what I love about it is like it had a creepy energy to it. It felt like it was a living, breathing entity when we were there. And Justin Brooks and Jill capture that, right? They capture the really this sort of majestic beauty of this haunted house. I mean, to me, they make it a centralized character in the film, which it has to be. It has to be. So I grew up a kid like Amityville Horror, watching that and being afraid of that house and how it was shot. So I think Justin Brooks does this so much justice of making this, capturing this energy of this house. It was definitely spooky.
Well, then it seems like you already answered that. It's definitely not haunted unless we would like to think it's haunted.
Yeah, yeah, it's fair. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't spend the night in it by myself. I mean, and I'm not a wimp, but no thanks. There's areas in that house that we didn't shoot in that you could like venture off to in the middle of the night while we were shooting overnights. And I did that once or twice just because I like to give my little heart a jump sometimes. And it's got its own character for sure. For sure.
Most certainly. And one of the things that this film kind of blends sort of like the haunted house ghost story and in use of a lot of different types of cameras, which which actually ironically started your career in the found footage era that started this entire industry. How did you feel returning to this type of genre that kind of started your career? And I wanted to say you wanted to close that chapter a while back.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? That chapter is my chapter, love it or leave it. And I will love it. I choose to because I first, there was no such thing as found footage until our film came out. And I think the titling of the movie, Their Footage Was Found, is how we came up with this phrase. And then to kind of come back to it, which what I like about this film is it utilizes the medium, but it's not solely executed that way. And there are films even to this day that I recently was talking about. Host, this British film that is all on Zoom. So the way that people are being, the ingenuity with which they make these found footage films is incredible. And this having be a part of a film that's shot on sticks, but also has this found footage element, to me is a happy medium because it's a nod to what, where I was in my career and where I am, and nod to the fact that it's sort of ironic, like found footage is still happening, and here I am back in a film that has some found footage in it. So I choose to embrace it. I think it's fun, and I think it works for this film because, of course, they would be wearing GoPros if they're quote unquote frogging in this house.
Absolutely. And one last thing, Michael. I know you've done countless interviews about the Blair Witch Project. Obviously, it's been 25 years. Congratulations,
Thank you.
that started your career. Not to praise or bash or anything like that, but tell us how you credit this project and what do you think about the remake that's actually just recently being announced?
Well, I have a complicated relationship with the Blair Witch Project because of being non-union, because SAG didn't have contracts that they have today that would have covered what we did out there. And recently we've sort of made a lot of noise about it based on the announcement of a new film. To be perfectly honest and candid, I really want it to do well because there is such a passionate fan base for this film, and I think there's room for it to grow. There's a whole universe that Ed Sanchez and Dan Myrick came up with many, many years ago. And so we sort of made a lot of noise, and it's been complicated over the last several months. But for me, the nice thing is, I guess the noise has been listened to a little bit. At least we've gotten to the point where we've had conversations with Lionsgate, and that's been encouraging. I don't have any news to share, but I will say I'm very proud and humbled to have been a part of this. So there's like two things can be true, but it's super complicated because there are certain things that did not happen through the process of that massive success that that film wound up being, and the you know the it's tough to really encapsulate it all. But if nothing else were attached to that, I would say, for the fans who literally are still talking to us about this and telling us how, we really got them into film making. I had a woman at a convention recently whose son passed away in 1999 or in 2000, who it was his favorite movie, and she came up with a shirt and it was a missing shirt. And I said, "This is my favorite shirt. I love that shirt. Where did you get it? It feels authentic." She said, "It was my son's. It was his favorite movie, and he passed away, and he would have been over the moon for you to sign it." And I have to say, I just broke down in tears because that's this connection that I have with this complete stranger, and her son is the way she connects with him. And it's a beautiful thing to share art between strangers. So everything that's involved and all the complicatedness, nothing could even hold a candle to the importance of my feeling about how that happened, about being connected to people because you told a story. And you go back to Ghost Game, it was the story that I was like, this is really cool and fun. I want to be a part of this. So stories keep us together. That's what stories do. Through all of history, through all of culture, it keeps us together. So hopefully people will get into this story and go support a small little indie film. That would be awesome.
That is so true. And I want to make a final note that you are still working with Sanchez because he's an executive
He
producer on this
is.
too.
Yes, that's right. He is. So that also is true. Our relationship is strong, and I'm grateful to be a part of his life. And I think he'd say the same about me. But we'll see that you could ask him that.
Well, it's excellent. Michael, thank you very much for carrying this conversation with us with Ghost Game. It is a whole lot of fun. And who knows, lots of these indie films become cult films 25 years later, most
There you
definitely.
go. That's true. Thank you so much for having me, Gig. I appreciate it. It's nice to meet you.
Hey, thank you. Next time.